Welcome to episode 11 of the Articulate Ox podcast, where artists talk about the art that made them artistic. I am your host, Soma79, and we have a great episode today with my man Kirk, Aztech Yee, and we're talking about 2000s underground hip hop. I have known Aztech for probably 15 plus years. He's a mainstay of Boston hip hop. He is one of the most respected dudes I know in the scene, and for good reason. He's an amazing MC. He's been working with Adult Swim for the past several years on Dr. Stone as working on the soundtrack, the music for that. He's taught classes in hip hop before. He's just an amazing, smart dude, and I really enjoyed talking to him. And obviously, 2000s underground hip hop is something that him and I share and have in common. We both kind of came up in the same time. We were part of the same crew, Project Mayhem, for a little while back in the, mid 2000s. It feels like a lifetime ago, but check out his music. It's all over Spotify. Check out Dr. Stone and enjoy our interview. So peace, Aztech. You are the man. Talk to you later. Peace. And once again, I forgot to mention, stick around till after the episode so you can check out the track Change by Aztech. Thank you very much. Peace. Hey, welcome to the Articulate Ox podcast. Our guest today is Aztech from Hybrid Thoughts. What's going on, Aztech?
What's poppin'?
Glad to have you here. So I've known you for probably, close to 15. Probably known who you were for close to 20 years. I think I've probably known you for about probably 15. You've been a mainstay of the Boston hip hop situation. I don't know. Scene. Like, as long as I've been around it, you've been there. So it's a pleasure to talk to you about this today. You've got tons of albums coming out. You just came back from Anime Comics. You've been doing some stuff with anime over the years. So I don't know. What's going on?
Yeah, man, just pretty much staying busy, mainly in the anime world these days, more so than I'll always be in the hip hop world. Hip hop is obviously what it is, but yeah, the anime stuff is definitely like kind of taken over the past few years. Past like I'd say like maybe 4 or 5 years. Anime has definitely been like the main tunnel vision for me. All while still doing music for myself. It's just that has given me the opportunity to kind of do that a little more freely and not have to worry so much about, running in a rat race or chasing a scene or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's just like, we're going to talk, the topic you want to talk about today is, underground hip hop from the early 2000s. And I did a little bit of research we lived through it, obviously, but did some research going back, and I started looking a little more at what caused the scenes to fall apart and why there were dips and why some of these companies that we love, record companies, went out of business. And a lot of it is sort of just chasing a scene, and just trying to, it's a tough biz. It's a tough biz to crack a full-time living out of.
100%. You ever seen the documentary Adult Rappers?
No, I haven't.
So you should check it out if not, because it's like I think it came out, I want to say in like maybe 2016, 2017, but it's literally all about that era that we came up on, the whole that whole like Def Jux, Anacon,
I gotta watch that.
It's very funny. It's all the guys we know on it talking about like how they don't know what to tell people now when they ask what they do for a living.
That's so funny, because I had 3SK, right?
Oh yeah.
I had him on a previous episode, and I talked to him about my idea for a documentary, which was to talk to some of these rappers from the early 2000s about what they're doing now. Because it's like, I know I mentioned, I think Jakai on the Motormouth is a friend of mine on Instagram. He does real estate in Las Vegas now. So if you need a place out there, hit him up. And it just like, there was more and more of these I was finding. I'm like, it must be interesting, because it's crazy to me, the people that made it and the people that didn't make it. And I know the example I always go to is 7L and Esoteric. We all love them coming from around here, but I think there was a time where they were probably could have been victim to a lot of these people that aren't around, and now they're bigger than ever. But I'm glad they made it. But you look at some of these. I was going through the roster on Baby Grand, and Jizza, Havoc, like all these people, Jean Grey, Immortal Technique, Jedi Mind Tricks, like I don't know. They gave a lot to rappers. So who was it for you? Who were the names that really got you going back in those days?
Yeah, so like obviously prior to that was like the typical, Wu-Tang, Nas, Cool G Rap kind of shit. But like
KRS,
to be honest,
all that Dre.
Yeah, exactly. But that era of like underground hip hop, the early 2000s, is like kind of like that coincides with when I decided to really try to be an MC. So like that stuff is what really kind of made me feel like I was part of something, like underground hip hop kind of I felt like I was part of something when I discovered that shit. So like it was definitely I want to say the first album that did that for me was probably Violent by Design, Jedi Mind Tricks,
Jedi
Violent by
Mind Tricks.
Design.
Yeah.
I'd say that album was the first time I was because granted they had worked with a lot of Boston cats like SO and whatnot, Virtuoso and stuff like that. But I discovered that album on my own. Well, me and my cousin discovered it on our own, and I was like, wow, these guys are underground, but I'm buying their album in a different state where they're from. So obviously there's a way to do this without like
Right.
being super famous or whatnot. So then I listened to that and I was like, oh, these guys rap just like I do. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
like this is it. You know what I mean? And then from Jedi Mind, I found all the cats, that they're obviously associated with, Virtuoso, Esoteric, Bahamadia,
Yep.
um,
All of
you know,
Demigods and Army of the Pharaohs, all those
Demigod,
guys.
yeah, Lift, I had known only because but prior to me rapping, I was a b-boy. So going to like flow loads events and stuff like that, I had seen Acrobatic prior to that. But I didn't know he was part of this whole same underground movement. So I got more into him, and cats like that. And us being in Boston was kind of a plus side because Boston was almost kind of like home base for that whole scene. Like underground hip hop scene was pretty much
Yeah.
based in Boston. You
I
know
mean,
what I mean? Like,
undergroundhiphop.com was based
the
in
headquarters,
Boston.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Ran
And
by
that's
Quest,
another
who
place.
was super nice
Yeah,
guy.
shout out to Quest, shout out to
Vance,
Erroneous too. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
Van Styles, and who was the other
Mhm.
one though? DJ Food Stamp did a lot with them too. He
Yep,
made a lot of
yep,
dope
yep.
mixes.
Yeah, no, and I'm that also coincides with that because then I started going there and spending mad time there. Just I was broke kid, so I wasn't buying shit, but I was just hanging out there for
Yeah.
hours. You know what I mean? And then you'd see cats like Virtuoso come through the door and Esoteric, and they would just come in and say what's up. And that was the first time I met a lot of those guys. Kind of goes hand in hand with I used to go to New York during that time too. With mixtapes to hand them out. I used to go to Fat Beats, and that's where I met cats like Jin. Originally, I met Jin in front of Fat Beats. I met Access Immortal, Breeze Overflowing. So that's why that era is so
Yeah.
special to me, man, because that was when that kind of like that era of underground hip hop kind of coincides with me becoming Aztec. You know what I'm saying? Like it, I mean, obviously, like I say, people ask my influences. I'm always like, nah, it's Cool G Rap, Wu Tang,
Right.
But if you would have asked me like what inspired me to like actually push myself to be in a scene was definitely that underground hip hop scene, early
It's
2000s.
it's funny because as you said that I was trying because we're about the same age, came up around the same time, and
Mm-hmm.
for me, my record with that was "God Loves Ugly" by Atmosphere,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
I would just I kind of get into being I wanted to be like a rave DJ, and pretty quickly I was like going through records, and I was much more intrigued by rap ones again. So I'm like, maybe we'll just do hip hop, and I you saw the line of people you'd heard of and people you hadn't heard of, and it
yeah.
was sort of felt like the difference between like a Guns N' Roses and like a Smashing Pumpkins or something, where it's just in like, oh well, there's got to be something to this. This came from Minnesota. They have like 4 albums, and then
Right,
once you
right.
peel that the first layer of the onion back, then you're buying Aesop Rock, and then it's all these people. And
Mm-hmm.
Breeze Ever Flowing was a name you couldn't get away from back then. That
Yeah,
guy
for
was
sure.
everywhere.
Especially if you were into like watching freestyle battles and stuff like that, like the origins of that shit. Like he was always I seen Breeze battle at the Western Front back
Oh
in the
God.
day. That was like 2002, maybe 2001, 2002. But yeah, I seen Breeze and Esoteric battle Jin that day. Yeah, I mean it
Was it
was
the Super Bowl?
yes.
Yeah, God, I wish that's who put that
Yeah.
on back in the day. That wasn't a Leeds thing, was it?
TD3, shout out to TD3
Oh, that was
who
TD3. Holy shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Shout out to TD3 because he's still
Yeah.
throwing battles, man.
Just got married too. Congratulations,
Hmm.
TD3.
Yeah, yeah.
I just hit him up recently because I found some old baseball cards, and I'm like, who could tell me potentially the right person to talk to if these are worth anything? And I'm like, there you go, that's the guy.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that guy's been hustling. So
Mhm.
the so what was it? So do you remember? So obviously we went to shows in the Middle East back in the day. What were how did you move from being somebody seeing these people in the audience to being on the crowd? Like what were the first couple shows you opened for? Like I mentioned Leeds before. I think he gave a lot of us our first opportunities
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
of
live
course. Shout
stage.
out to Leeds. Shout out to Leeds. Yeah, I mean,
Still doing
the,
it.
the first act I ever opened up for was prior to Leeds, and it was prior to me even like being in the South Shores when I was still living in the North Shore. I actually opened up for the Beatnuts
Oh,
in Maine.
nice.
I think that was my first like show that I opened up for somebody. Um, then like it would happen randomly, and then leads started putting us on, shows. But I think the first like time where it felt like I was really opening up so was once again was Jedi Mind Tricks at the Middle East, and it was me
Those
and
shows were always bananas too. I went
crazy,
to a bunch
and
of
it was
those.
it was the first time I ever sold out, performed for a sold out crowd too, like a real sold out crowd,
Right.
not like throughout the night, ended up get capacity, but like
Yeah, because
it was me and
they had such local scene, they had such ties to the local scene. People knew to come
yeah,
early because everybody was going to be good.
yeah, exactly, and it was me and Hectic, who I was rocking with mainly at the time, and we ended up on that show as like a random fluke. We were like standing at the back door and like asked them personally, and they're like, "Yeah, fine, come on in," and then we got on, and
Hey,
that
it's
was
always no if you don't ask, you know.
yeah, exactly. So that was the first like I think like show where I opened that like I really felt like I was like more than just somebody who just kind of performed early in the night. Like I actually like opened a big show, and
Yeah.
I think that was 2006. I want to say, but
What occurred to me while you were saying that is so my first solo show ever opening for anybody was the record release party for this album.
oh shit,
Yeah,
oh
your
damn,
debut album, Revolutionary Ruins. I don't have my glasses on, so I'm hoping I said that right because I can't read it.
yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
end zone.
Yes, the end zone. I wish I if that place is still around, I'll be shocked.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I ever did a solo show.
Oh, dope, dope, dope. I didn't know that, man. That's what's up.
Yeah, you probably weren't even there yet because I was everything you said that Jedi Mind show wasn't. I was like just some hobo they threw on the last minute to open up the first thing. So, but
That
that
was the
was a
first night I
great.
met you, then, right? Was that the first night I met you?
It might have been. It was probably right
Okay.
around then because I think that was
Okay.
the Vengeful Mind days. You were part of
Right.
Vengeful Minds, right?
I was. Yep.
Yep.
I was.
Yeah. That feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, I know. I feel old even saying that.
I know it is nuts because I was watching. I was listening before we talked to this record that they put out in 2009, which was the
Mm.
it was where they played a bunch of classical versions of Jay Dilla,
Oh, dope.
and it was recorded live in 2009. I was like, oh my god, that
Mm.
alone was 13 years ago. So I was trying to figure out when it was he passed, and he's been gone for over 15 years now. That
Yeah,
it's, but I will say hip hop's done a great job of keeping his legacy alive.
very much. Very, very much.
Rightfully so.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit, shift gears for a second about the stuff you're doing in anime. So what are you really doing? What talk about it?
Yeah, so pretty much what it's been is myself and a couple of my crew members from Hybrid Thoughts, Paranorm and Casper mainly. Um, Pretty much we've been handling all the hip hop on any anime that comes out under Toho Animation, which is um, the same production company that brought you Godzilla originally. Yeah. So it's been it kind of changed from so I wear a couple different hats in that industry now. Of course, just doing the hip hop stuff. Doing a lot of writing too, like skit writing and things like that. Um, and like developing ideas on like how like a sound should end up. But mainly it's just been hip hop. So like pretty much what the way it goes is I'm usually like the final stage before the show comes out. The show's done. The score is pretty much already done too. And they kind of call me to come in and lay vocals on top of certain things. And I would say anything that could be hip hop, but like the majority of the stuff I do on anime has sounds nothing like hip hop. It's just me rapping over like orchestras and random shit like that, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
It definitely pushes me.
Now, just a cool question: is that more common in Asia, in like Japan, to have rappers go over that type of more classical stuff, or is that specific to these projects?
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, I think it is common over there, but I think it's common over there because of anime. Soundtracks like Samurai Champloo, shout out Nujabes, rest in peace. Nujabes kind of like invented the whole like lo-fi thing that's like such a big obsession now.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and soundtracks like Samurai Champloo kind of like put that out into light. And that was before we knew it was called lo-fi. It sounded like somebody rapping over jazz music. You know what I mean? Or like
yeah. It's
So
it's
like
it's pretty wild to me that drums have been the thing that have disappeared the most in
I
rap
know,
music over the
I
past
know,
decade. I
no
just
hip hop
sometimes
based
I
on
get beats
rhythm.
and I'm like, are there even drums on this?
I
Like,
know. Trust me, I agree completely.
yeah,
Um, but so that's pretty much the way it goes. As far as that, they I think now I've done. I'm gonna mess up if I try to say the number of shows I've done, but the biggest couple I've done will definitely there's three titles that were like have kind of like changed my life over the past few years, which is Jujutsu Kaisen, Doctor Stone, and Beastars, which are all all got like super gigantic, and that's what's caused me to be like, all right, well, I've never been part of anything this big in hip hop, so
yeah,
looks like
yeah,
this is what it is,
yeah, yeah. It's like, when a door opens, go through it.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's kind of like what made me spearhead the whole anime thing. Now instead of Aztech the MC, it's Aztech the soundtrack artist, just because it just makes more sense at this point, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it really speaks to the value of being multi-talented too, because a lot of times these days, I mean, you were nice enough to record for my album, Drinking Songs for Children. You're in a song with Esoteric from Czarface and Kool Keith. And one of the reasons why nobody's heard that song right now is because I'm holding off on releasing it until I have the full movie
Bro,
to go with
you
it. And
don't
it's
you
just
don't even understand how hard it is for me to not tell the entire planet
I know, I
that
feel
like
really
when
you
you
can no,
use
you can
this,
tell
so it's
people.
okay.
You can
Yeah,
tell
that like
people.
I've told a few of like dog, I just did a song with Kool Keith. Like I don't think you people even know that. And it's like, bro, he was on my bucket list of people to collab with before I retired. And here you come with a message like, hey, I got the song with Kool Keith, and that's all. I was like, yeah, yeah, I'm in.
That was one
So
of the last things on the album too, and that was actually it was actually Esso's idea to put him on that because at the time Esso did his verse a few years ago. And I was going back and forth. And I was having time. Sometimes when you're reaching out to rappers, everybody will respond in 2 seconds. And other times, like nobody responds. And I
right.
asked Esso, I'm like, who do you think would be on this? And he's like, hit up Keith. And I'm like, he gave me his email address. I'm like, that's perfect. I never thought of that. So
Yeah, actually, I spoke to Esso about it at Fan Expo. He was pumped that the song's complete. So
sweet. And I remember too, that was on the heels of I had been working hard to try to get Shock G on the album. I really
mhm.
wanted a Humpty Hump appearance on this one song that eventually went to Young Dirty Bastard because I wanted to have a Wu-Tang influence on it too. And I had been talking to his manager, and she had told me was that he accepts very few things these days, but come up with your best proposal and I will put it in front of him and I'll get you an answer. And then about a week before I was ready to respond back, he passed away. And it was
Yeah.
just like it was just
I think
reminding me, I'm like, you gotta, and I think him and Kool Keith are the same age. I think I looked it up around that time, and I'm like, I mean, I don't want to like put a hex on anybody, but I'm just like, you realize that you gotta, when you have these opportunities, you gotta take them.
take them, yeah,
It's
hundred
funny too.
percent.
Actually, I was watching something yesterday that I was watching. They're now pushing the Oliver Hart, the from Idea and Abilities. They're reissuing that, and I watched a documentary about him, and I remembered that Pilsy, one of our mutual friends, had talked to Idea about doing a song together
Right, right.
back
I
in the
remember
like
that.
yeah, he said it was like
Yeah,
$1,500 back then, which I think back then sounded like a lot of money, but I would definitely if I would love to have that song right now.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
But it
You
also
also
speaks to
got
too.
didn't you get a Mac? You got a Mac Lethal verse before the fucking whole
Yeah,
Mac Lethal giant internet personality thing happened.
I know.
So
I have two. I
yeah,
have
yeah,
one that's on the album that's really long and old, and I have another one that's short that I'm going to re-release soon. But yeah, I got really lucky on that. I remember watching him on Scribble Jam, and he's up there with a black guy. I'm like, who is this dude? And he
yeah.
seemed very fearless for somebody that I don't know. I mean, I would have been terrified in that situation. Do you ever go to Scribble Jam back in the day?
Not to the actual one in Cincinnati, but I went to a lot of the prelims. I battled in one of the prelims. I want to say it was 2004, maybe. No, maybe I don't remember the exact year, but I battled in a prelim. I didn't make it past the prelims, but I never got to go to Cincy. I wanted to every time,
Yeah.
obviously.
If that
I,
lasted one or two more years, I probably would have won. It was just it seemed like he was
yeah,
kind of falling apart by the
it
end,
was fading. It was
unfortunately.
fading out for sure.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was really always like in conversation with the homie Jin, who obviously that's his whole world.
I love Jen. Yeah.
Shout out to him. We actually just reconnected recently.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, yeah. He was always like seeing him was always, I don't cite that enough, but like talk about influences, man. That guy, obviously being Asian MCs, but like he kicked the door open for me, someone like me, to be able to do this and like kind of at least have somebody now to like kind of like, you know, like white rappers are always like, I'm gonna be Eminem no matter what.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm now, you know, for a long time it was just like, oh, what are you, Jin? And honestly,
Right.
I'm not even mad at that. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. You
Right.
know
Yeah.
what I mean?
There's a lot worse things to be, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. So you know, shout out to him. He's living a good life these days, man. Much
That's
love to
good.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just revisited some of his. I found a couple of his mixtapes recently, and I was putting him in. He has this one track about doing the battle in Puerto Rico that I love, and he just walks through the whole process of going down there and how he won it, and it's a
Yeah.
nasty track.
Yeah. That was Fight Club. That was dope. That was a dope time.
Yeah. So those are back. Those are all off the head battles back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Long before the month month advance notice of your opponent, sometimes a year advance notice of your
I
opponent.
know. It's like when did that cutoff really happen? Because I mean, I used to do some of those TD3 battles back in the day. I remember Grime the MC, who
Mhm.
isn't are you related to? Isn't he one of you know him back in the day or something?
We're from the same city.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
definitely mopped up the floor with me once.
Me too.
And
I'm from
yeah,
that.
you know, I could blame the pills, but it was me. But do you remember when that really switched over? Because there was a time where I
Yeah.
was working on stuff that wasn't a lot of hip hop related, and I remember for me it was the cannabis disaster battle was the first battle I'd watched in a while, and I remember Narconics or Pascarosa showed it to me, and I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't all off the top of the head. Well, obviously when he pulled out the thing, it wasn't, but
So the switch actually, I would say, happened in about '08. So the reason it happened, because you know, I used to work for Grind Time. You know, I ran the Grind Time Boston
oh
division.
yes, I forgot about that. Yes,
Myself and Ed OG, yeah. So I was actually really involved in the scene for a while, but the switch happened in about '08, and the reason it happened was so before like Grind Time, which was the first of like the whole Battle League thing. The last like standing freestyle tournament was Jump Off's World Rap Championships, where like Ilmac and Thesaurus were like the duos, and you
yes,
know Marv One and Quest McCody. So WRC ended. They had their last one in '07, and then everyone from that battle scene kind of kind of in limbo. There was nowhere to go and really battle, like at least like the acapella kind of battle. But uh, my homie Direct, who's from Mass originally, but he was going to Full Sail University at the time, started a thing called Grind Time, which was acapella battles. But the difference was is people knew who they were battling in advance. So before they were openly saying they were written, they were just saying they were premeditated battles. So they came there ready. But then as time went on, people knew more, and they just straight up were like, "No, these are all written now." You know.
which
So
makes
about
more
07 or 08.
sense.
Yeah,
Like the
100%. I
thing.
mean, it makes it more entertaining for sure.
Right. I had explained it to my girlfriend recently where I'm like, because we were watching battles and I was like, and she didn't realize that people weren't coming off the top of their head anymore. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, you're guaranteed good battles now, which is
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
And you're also, it doesn't give the problem was if you were a bigger rapper, you were at a huge disadvantage. Well, you're at a huge advantage because the voting was insane. Like
Mhm.
I definitely saw battles that were called wrong all
Ridiculous.
the time.
Yeah.
And you're also, but if you're a bigger rapper, everybody knew stuff to make fun of you about. Like, no
Mhm.
one was gonna know about my ex-girlfriend doing whatever to me because no one even knew who I was. But
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
tons of stuff you can pull up on anybody else on the internet. So
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, so like I think the first battle that really like showed everybody that was Dumbfounded versus Tantrum, which was like the first grind time battle to like at the time. And now this sounds like nothing, but at the time it broke 100,000 views, and like now that don't mean shit, but
right.
then a
Yeah,
battle
it's
getting
huge.
100,000 views was gigantic. Like
Yeah.
whoa. And then I mean now if a battle doesn't crack a million, it's considered a failure. But
Right, right. I mean, that was even
so,
to put that in perspective, you're talking '07. YouTube was pretty new at that point too.
yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and we weren't
But
we
yeah,
weren't watching on our phones either. I mean, if we were, we
no,
just barely were.
they had to wait till you had a computer. Yeah, for sure. But that made me want to get involved. Originally, I was gonna battle in grind time, but I had started recording more, dropping albums and things like that, and I was like, I really don't want like to be pigeonholed as a battler. I want to continue to make music. If I lose a battle, no one's gonna want to fuck with my music. So
Right.
like, so I just ended up working behind the scenes a lot in it, and myself and Ed OG ended up running Grind Time Boston for a while.
Yeah. And the thing is, that's a much better presence to have too, because the battlers come and go. But I mean, it's I mean,
Yeah,
being next to
exactly.
Ed OG in Boston. I mean, you mentioned before, there weren't up until I think there's the underground hip hop scene that kind of popped off in the Boston area, among other places. The Boston hip hop presence was pretty small. I mean, Ed OG was one of the bigger names, Gangstar too, but they're from
Mhm.
I mean, they're not as from Boston as some Boston acts, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think to this day, Edo was still the only Boston rapper with a #1 record under his belt, which is kind of
Really?
crazy. Yeah,
Wow,
that was
that
in
is
1991. I gotta have it. That was the last time. I don't think anyone else has since
I'm
then.
trying to think who else it could possibly be, and I can't. Wow. All
Yeah,
right.
crazy,
I
right?
guess Esso, you got something to shoot for, man. I guess we all do, but
Yeah, exactly.
that's pretty wild,
Yeah, for sure.
man. All right, so let's talk a little bit about God, where's gonna go with that? About oh, that's what it was. Some of the labels you had mentioned when we first talked about this was Ruckus, Death Jux, Baby
Mhm.
Grand. We're also talking about around the same time when the battling switched over. That was around the same time a lot of these companies sort of started going away. It seems
Yeah.
like Rhyme Sayers has been the one that's really stuck around and stayed truest to its roots. Baby Grand has
Mhm.
grown in different ways. But how were you finding so in the time in those like 6 or 7 years was really the heyday of underground hip hop. What what was your arc during that time? You started off as a listener, you ended up on stage. Did you see the industry changing at that time? And that was a time where I started pivoting kind of away from hip hop because I was feeling very discouraged about the chance of moving on. You stuck through it,
Right,
and good thing you did. But
right, right, right.
what was that journey like?
Um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I started changing right away because I was also like at the age I was kind of just blinded. Like now I'm doing shows and I'm involved and I'm recording. I got a crew. I'm like so like I was just kind of living in La La Land. You know what I mean? Like like this is it. I'm a rapper. I don't care if I'm broke. You know what I mean? But you did gradually see a change, and I think what really, to be honest, like I think what kind of like made that whole scene kind of like start to like derail was the rise of the internet, man. When the internet came along, especially music sharing and all that stuff, like being a rapper meant less. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then because I try to explain, so I was teaching for a while, a hip hop class, and I was trying to explain to these kids that, like, I'm telling you, during this day, underground hip hop didn't mean non-discovered hip hop. Then it didn't mean technically like
Right.
you're underground until you're mainstream. It's like underground hip hop was almost like its own genre of music,
Yeah.
you know? And I think with like the rise of the internet, that became less relevant because so many people were putting out music, and being labeled an underground rapper just started meaning less and less and less, to the point where it just meant nothing. Um, like if you weren't really like popping off, then no one really gives a shit. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like what the problem was that, like, the internet was obviously around during the early 2000s, but social media and things like that, like we were limited to like MySpace and things like that. But like even before that, there wasn't so much access to be able to just make music and press a button and put it out. So like when you went to Newbury Comics or like a record store and you saw these CDs, they meant something because these guys made a
Right.
record and they got it in stores. Like this means something.
Yeah.
Now
They
record
convinced
stores
other people to help them, and money was spent,
exactly
and
financed a record and put one out and they got it all over the country. Like, all right, so this is some real shit.
right.
Now with the rise of the internet and physical music, and I mean, I know vinyl is back on the rise, but like the fact that like going to a CD store to pick up a new record the day it drops doesn't exist anymore
Yeah.
is another reason why that kind of faltered out, because that's kind of where that scene lived.
Yeah.
I mean, what places like Newbury Comics, like, Jedi Mind Tricks put out a new album, I'll tell you, let's go to Newbury Comics and grab it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Now it's just like, let me open Spotify and listen to it on the way to work, So it's
I
like,
I waited out line inside of Tower Records at midnight to get Dr. Dre 2001 or 2000
right,
Grind.
right.
Yeah, and
Yeah, see,
Eminem, Marshall
exactly.
Mathers LP too. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, that was the whole and I think that era, that scene of like underground hip hop, kind of like that's where that thrived. It kind of lived off of that, like what that experience you just described. It kind of lived off that, and I think the rise of the internet made that exist less. You know what I mean? And then
yeah,
living in a digital world kind of made that exist less too. And I think that's kind of why that part of the industry changed so much.
One of the things that discouraged me around that time was that I realized, I was doing opening act. You were definitely ahead of me in terms of the shows you're doing. I was doing some opening act gigs with Mike Monarchy, and we'd open for shows, and everybody in the crowd was somebody else who was going to come up and perform. And it's like, you can't
Mhm.
sell a CD to somebody who's trying to sell you a CD.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
just realistic about the amount of people that existed in the city that were at that point willing to spend money on hip hop, and it was
No,
way
facts.
less than the amount of people trying to sell.
Yeah, facts.
And
Super
that's what
facts. I mean,
I listened to an interview with LP, and that's what he said kind of killed Def Jocks. He's like, there was a time where people just stopped buying the physical media, and it was really hard to make money off the digital at that point. And
yeah.
when acts were starting to have higher expectations, and you have the overhead of a real record label.
Right, right. Yeah, no, definitely. It's crazy, man. To even like, I still feel young, so like to know that like was that long ago, and like I'm at where I'm at now, still
Yeah,
doing the same shit. It's kind of crazy, but
yeah.
no,
I
it is
mean, I
what
just
it
remember doing the math, going like, even these acts that we were opening for, that like when I was opening for back then, I don't want to name names because what I'm about to say is that, oh, these acts can't sell out this venue without us openers getting all of our friends to
is.
come. It was like basically it was like the favor system was wild. It was a
Crazy.
scene that was supported by local rappers wanting to be on stage to a lot of degree.
Hmm. Crazy, super
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, even like you said, not to name names, but like, yeah, I remember like going to a show and like, maybe like 2000, 2001, seeing somebody in a packed, and then like, yeah, like us opening up for them, and they can't even sell out a 200 capacity venue anymore. And it's like,
Like, yeah,
yeah,
like
it's
what's
crazy.
the
That's very
retirement?
discouraging. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember one day trying to think of, I'm like, I bet I can, I was trying to think of who in the New England hip hop scene was making a full-time living doing this. And it was around that time. And I could probably only come up with a few names,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's
Fact.
just like, you're fighting. It's like I had a better chance of saying I was going to be play for the Bulls or play for the Celtics,
Yeah.
statistically,
No, no.
probably,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
but
You're not wrong.
yeah. But, it is funny too that there was something about this underground hip hop scene. I mentioned that Pillsy had talked to Idea that these artists were a lot more accessible. I mean, there was the idea when I was listening to a Too Short album in 1991 or the Ghetto Boys that I'd ever have a conversation with Too Short or the Ghetto Boys was like, it seemed
Hmm.
like we're not even the same planet.
Hmm.
But we got the great opportunity. I always remember the picture of Copyright inside of and Hush's house before a show,
Yeah.
and it's just like we got the chance to interact with all these people. What are some of your best memories of meeting some of these acts that we got to perform and meet with? And
Yeah. Oh man, there's a lot, and that's the kind of stuff, man, that like I kind of think about that I'm grateful for. Like, and like me, not to like kiss my own ass, but like me being like more successful now. Sometimes I kind of forget about those moments because now like I'm so hyper focused on like trying to like keep my kind of career moving and continue to living. But like, yeah, you stop and think about these moments. Like I remember, I mean, I'll go back to that same show when we opened for Jedi Mind Tricks. I was backstage. There's another story I had before that, but I don't want to like really put anybody under the.
yeah, that's
I
fine.
want to, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I've had to hold back a few of those stories too.
Yeah. Oh my god. But well, you know what? I will. So I won't say his name, but I will say there's a certain underground rapper who developed a persona and an entire personality around being a drug addicted, crazy rapper. And then I'm backstage with him. He's completely normal. He's drinking tea. He's normal. Then he goes on stage and pretends that he's all fucked up on drugs and starts stumbling around on stage. I was like, okay, that
All
that
right,
that's not one of the best, but that's one of the funniest.
that is pretty
I'll
wild.
tell you who it is after.
I
But
got a couple guesses in my head.
you were there. I remember you being there, so you
Oh,
probably know.
okay.
Yeah.
And now, all right, now I don't. Now it's not who I thought. All right.
All right.
I
But
remember there was a story you told me about another rapper in an airport that I think maybe came from someone else, and
okay.
maybe involved bushes and hiding in them or something.
Oh no, yeah, that's actually my homie these days, so I won't
Okay,
talk about him.
that's
But
yeah. Well, that's why I didn't
but
want
yeah,
to name his name, but
yeah. But one great memory, honestly, was I was gonna name one with who you're just talking about, but I'm not going to now. Um,
sorry.
um
I can cut that part out if you want.
but no, 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 it's all good. One great memory I have is when we did open for Jedi Mind Tricks, and I went backstage. You remember how the little shitty Middle East downstairs
Yep.
backstage area there? I'm back there, and Vinny Paz walks back there. I'm like, yo, what's up, man? Big fan. It's great to be opening for you. Da, da, da. He's like, yeah, no doubt. And then he's looking for something. He's like, yo. I'm like, what's up? He's like, did you eat my fucking chicken sandwich? I was like, nah, man. He's like, I had a chicken sandwich and you're the only one back here, man. I was like, nah, I didn't. And then Crypto Watch, I was like, nah, dog. Like, he's like, I moved it over here. He's like, oh, my bad. I thought you ate my food. Great story. I almost fought Vinny Paz because he
Yeah,
thought I ate a chicken sandwich. But
yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't want to fight Vinny
no,
Paz.
no, no. But that's a good memory. I mean, first time I met a lot of people, man. God, there's so many. It's tough to even really like to pin them down. But MOP, uh, opening for MOP and them giving me and Slant the mic to do the hook for Annie Up.
Oh my God.
Amazing, amazing moment.
Annie Up is still to me the most hype beat in hip hop history. That's
Yeah,
I can't think
there'll
of
never be
any.
another one. Never
Yeah,
be another one
it's
like
just
it.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot, man. I mean, that's one thing, like being an opening act for like your favorite artist growing up is those kinds of experiences, man. Even just dapping up somebody you looked up to,
Yeah.
like all that time and being in their presence and all that. It's just it's dope, man.
Yeah, it's
For
pretty
sure.
wild. That's something you didn't really get as much in other music scenes. It's not something that I think we were brought up to think was going to happen when we were just listening to tapes as a kid, you know.
Right, exactly.
But I'm sure you, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I was the only person that listened to hip hop. I was called what I call the W word all the time, which I
Yeah,
think is pretty
yeah,
revolting. But
yeah, yeah,
I remember going like Strawberries, and all there was 2 rows of cassette tapes, and they're the same ones you saw every time, and you just knew you'd only get to listen to a fraction of them. And then now we've taken to a point where I would say hip hop is one of the biggest cultural exports that we have in this country.
yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah,
remarkable.
100%. I know you can't go to any country in the world and not see a hip hop scene. It's crazy.
Over the
Like
course
people
of
just
your life,
love.
how did the perception of you being a rapper change? How did people view that over time? Is it more respected now than it used to be? Because it's like it's been a dirty word at some points, but
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think me being Asian kind of was always more of like an anomaly than anything. Coming up, I mean, even now, to be honest, coming up, you how often would you find an Asian rapper? Not often at all, I mean,
no.
pretty often now. I mean, often to find any rapper now on the internet,
Right,
but like
yeah,
but coming up, man, it was more of like people wanted to hear because they didn't know if an Asian dude could rap or not. You know what I mean? So it was kind of its own thing. Um, but there was definitely like a lot of hate and like from other Asians more than anything, to be honest, just like no one's gonna take you serious. Um, so like I want to say like early 2000s, I was part of this online community called AsianRaps.com. And that's kind of where like the Asian rappers that did exist all would conversate. Like Jin was on there, I was on there. I don't know if you remember South Star from Smiles and South Star.
yes, yep,
South Star was on there. Snacky Chan was on there. Um, we were all on there and we were all talking. And I remember like the week Jin was going to 106 in Park, everyone's like, dude, no one's gonna ever take you serious.
yeah,
But lo and behold, week 1, week 2, week 3, it's like, oh, never mind. We shouldn't have said that.
yeah, no shit.
Week 7,
It's
I'm signed to Rough Riders. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. But I think so. I don't think I never really got too much hate for being Asian rapping, but I definitely didn't get taking as serious sometimes. Definitely, I want to say. Definitely like left out of a lot of conversations that I think I should have been involved in for quite a while due to that. And but things are different now. Not really like different to a point where it's like, that noticeable because when you see an Asian rapper, people still
right,
sit on him. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But I mean, the world's just grown so much that I think it's not as like looked at as like taboo or just whack, you know,
Yeah,
automatically.
Boston's a strange city anyway too, because it's in some ways very culturally diverse, but in other ways very segregated.
Yeah.
Because I think we definitely back in the day played some shows where the majority of people was a white audience, and there were other shows going on in the city that night where the majority was a black audience. It's like there
Mhm.
wasn't always a lot of crossover.
Yeah, no, for sure. The hip hop scene was definitely, it still is here, honestly. At least from what I see from I'm not really too involved in the Boston hip hop scene these days, but from what I still see, like I still pay attention, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And what I see, it's still like that. You know what I mean? Even with the younger generation. And that's something that's always kind of sucked about the city,
Yeah.
in comparison to like places like, New York and stuff like that. And it also makes me think like as I'm older now, like how kind of fucked up a lot of the underground scene really was for like the way they acted sometimes. Cause I'm sure you can attest, like a lot of like underground rappers, like cats that we came up with, or like cats that we even listened to, you know, kind of walked around with this like mentality where like telling people what they're doing isn't hip hop. I'm victim to that. You know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
Like
you're a lot less than other people.
yeah. No, no, for sure. But like what are you doing? That shit ain't hip hop. And then like you start to think like a lot of times, yo, it was like some like white backpacker rapper telling some kid from the hood
Right.
what he's doing is not hip hop because he's rapping about guns or something. It's like, bro, do you realize what's
Yeah, it's
like? Even just think about
the
that now.
levels
It's
of
like,
hypocrisy are
how
just.
did that happen? Like, how did that happen so often? You know what I
I
mean?
know
Like,
it did though.
it's crazy.
And that's
I
what I
love
mean.
it.
That's the thing is that's what happens when college kids take over. Because when
Yeah,
the thing about the Boston hip hop scene is I think there's so many college kids in Boston. They drive one part of the scene, and I think the residents of Boston and the surrounding areas
yeah.
drive the other part of the scene to some degree.
Facts. Yeah, super facts.
Yeah. And I mean, I went to Boston University, and that's the time I got into a lot of this underground hip hop. So I mean, I know from what I speak,
Right,
but
right, right.
and I actually I think Aesop Rock was at BU the same time as me, though I doubt I ever met him, but I think he
Mm,
dabbled there too. But
interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. Yeah.
you know, but
Hmm.
so you want to talk a little about wrestling, which I am always dying to talk about. I was shoveling snow today, and I actually stayed out there longer to shovel my deck because I wanted to hear more of your new stuff. So I listened to Green 21. Was it 21, 23, 21, right?
21. Yep.
Yeah, that blew me away. Where'd that intro come
Thank you.
from?
You have to ask my man Iadonic from Japan, who produces most of my stuff these days.
Man,
Uh, but he made that. I don't know, but I loved it. That
it's
intro
wild.
kind of made me like theme the whole album around Green
Yeah.
because he made that first, and then I was like, well, obviously can't rap to this, but I want it, So
Yeah, I loved it. And the whole record was amazing.
thank you.
There was I appreciated that. I heard I'm a Raven Even Flow bar. I
Mhm.
heard what I think you said, something about Honky Tonk Man and Jerry the King Lawler, which I popped for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rip off the king like the honky
that's
tonk
what it
man.
was. Yes, yes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a deep cut. I was on board for it.
Very,
Um,
very, very rarely do I not have at least 5 or 6 wrestling references in an album.
it's so hard not to.
I
It's
know.
just I have one on that Keep Cool Keith song. I think I say, clearly you could see I'm drunk, the opposite of CM Punk.
Yeah. I still
And
had
that,
one too.
yeah, so he had a Jeff Hardy one. And he's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
man. So how much? So obviously we both have big history watching wrestling. How much are you paying attention now?
I am. It's just now, like, if I miss something, I'm not really like kind of rushing to like
Yeah,
obviously,
it's like
grown up,
12 hours
not
of
really,
original
but
content every week. You can't
it's a
watch all
lot.
of it.
It's a lot. But also like shout out to these wrestling YouTubers who kind of
Yeah,
keep me
me too.
sharp. It's easy to watch those when I'm like, or like to listen to them at least when I'm like, going into the store or something.
Yep.
So, but I am paying attention. I got some favorites these days.
You
To be
AEW or
honest,
WWE?
both.
Yeah,
To be honest, so I tried to jump on the AEW train, man, and
they've made
I
it
will
hard
say
lately.
they did, dude. And not only that, but like, okay, so me being such a nerd, man, like I love wrestling for the wrestling part of it, but like I'm such a sucker for storylines,
Me too.
and I just
Yep.
don't think AEW has perfected that good enough yet. You know,
No, they haven't, and they've
the
gotten.
actual like physical wrestling aspect of AEW is fucking phenomenal. But storylines, man, I mean, I don't know, man. It's still WWE for me. And
Because AEW will bring in wrestlers that the majority of people have never heard of, and these are people that be huge in Japan or huge in Europe,
right.
but like or Mexico, but like they treat them like they're big stars, and we don't know who they are. And it's a great
Yeah.
match if you enjoy it in the crowd. I hear the
Mhm.
live experience for AEW. I hear is
Yeah,
phenomenal. That
it is. Yeah, it is. I went to it at Agganis Arena. It
yeah,
was. And like what you were just saying, sometimes that works, when they're trying to make somebody a superstar. And sometimes it doesn't. Like WWE is also good at that too. You're like, look what they did with Shinsuke, and not now. They fucked his
Right.
whole thing up,
I
but like
can't. That don't even get me started.
me
And
too.
he's got
That's
the
my
best theme.
dude,
He has the
bro.
best theme music in the history of wrestling, I
Most
think.
charismatic guy on the roster, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But
he's
they
like a
just
mix between Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson when he comes to the ring,
yes,
and
yes,
Bruce Lee and the ability to
yeah,
kick your ass. It's
yeah,
just
exactly. That was my favorite dude for the last like 3 years, man. But yeah, but like, see what they did with him when he was in NXT is like they made you think he was a superstar, and it worked. You know what I mean?
right.
And dude didn't have to say anything. You know, but yeah, no, I want to be in AEW. I want to, but it's just WWE. It still keeps me more interested.
Well,
So
AEW has screwed up Wardlow. I mean, he should be the easiest slam dunk in the history of
I
booking
agree.
wrestling.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think eventually he'll get there, but I bet it's going to be on WWE. I think
Mhm.
once his contract's up, he's going to be, calling Triple H.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I
So
agree.
I think this episode is probably going to come out around mid-March. Means we're going to be coming up around WrestleMania season.
Mhm.
So you want to make any predictions or any hopes of what you're going to see? I think this is WrestleMania 39, correct?
I think so.
So I keep thinking
Um,
that that 40 is going to be the big one. I think that I'll go first. My quick predictions. I don't think we're going to see Rock in Roman. I think we're going to see something to set it up for next year.
okay.
And I think people are talking, is CM Punk going to be there? I think CM Punk's going to be in a courtroom a lot next year. And I think the best case scenario, I've been seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin getting in shape. I'd love to see CM Punk versus Austin at WrestleMania 40.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But
The only prediction that I think is I think we're gonna see KO and Sami Zayn versus the Usos for the tag team
ooh,
title.
that's
I
a
think
good
that's
one.
gonna happen. I'm pretty sure that's what they're kind of starting to kind of gear up for right now.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's gonna happen. I was originally thinking Roman versus The Rock, but I think you're right. I think that'd be something to save. Like 40 is a big number, so I think that would make more sense. Yeah,
So who do
but
you put Roman in with if it's not going to be? I can't. I mean, if you're going to do the Rock next year, do you
oh,
try to get the belt off Roman because it's going to mean less? I think even though the Rock winning the belt doesn't mean much,
mhm.
I think I assume the storyline is going to be something about who is the real chief of the
Right,
Samoan
right, right.
whatever. And I think if Roman's already been beaten, that it makes his position a little weaker going into the Rock with
Mm.
that.
So what I originally thought for this year, for the next WrestleMania, was I thought like 2 nights. Roman defends each title on one night, right?
Oh
Night
yes.
one, right? Night one, he defends WWE title against Cody Rhodes because I think Cody Rhodes is coming back
Yeah. I think the
soon.
Rumble. I think he could win the
Yeah,
Rumble. I think.
same. That's my prediction. He wins the Rumble. He faces Roman night one, and then night two, I was gonna say Universal title Roman versus The Rock because The Rock winning the Universal title, I don't think would mean as much. They put it on Goldberg last year. You know what
Right.
I'm
That's
saying?
true. Yeah.
So I don't think that title would mean that much if The Rock won as opposed to the WWE title. Because I think the Universal title is kind of just like it's almost like a kitschy world title. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
what the hell
Right.
even is a Universal Champion? You know what I mean? So
Right. If that
I
went away, I think that wouldn't be terrible. 'Cause especially
that's what I
they've done a
mean.
great job of building up the IC and the US titles now. So those now almost mean more than the Universal because people just think it's all
Yeah,
about one big
it's
title.
Roman's secondary title. Yeah. So
Yeah.
uh yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'll stick with that. Maybe that happens. We'll see. But
Yeah. That would be good. I've heard very little about Cody in terms of his injury status, but he's probably one of those guys going to keep that very close to the vest. But did you
yeah.
watch that match where he with the pack?
Yeah, man, that was brutal.
Oof. That
Brutal
was
to even look at. I can't believe he did that
I
shit.
can't believe that there was that I mean that he got medically cleared to go out and wrestle. I mean, it's
Yeah.
this is how I know I'm old. I'm thinking about it from an insurance perspective. I'm like somebody to sign off of that knowing that there could be a lawsuit or something. Like that seems like a
Yeah, that's not healthy.
when he pulled the you could hear like the air in the room kind of go out when he
Mhm.
took the robe off. But
Yeah, crazy,
uh,
crazy. I do think so now that Bray Wyatt's back too, I think they kind of like toying with Alexa Bliss joining him again. But if you pay attention to Asuka on Instagram, she's been painting her face like Kana, who was her character in New Japan,
oh
and
word,
she was kind of like a darker, more evil thing. So like, and now since her and Alexa Bliss are kind of like a team, I see like Asuka joining the Wyatt world, which would be fire because she's
that would
already
be
fucking crazy.
awesome.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
she's actually my favorite wrestler right now. She's been for like the past year or so.
I mean, she's in Damage Control, right?
No, Asuka.
No, no, Asuka. Okay, she's the one
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
been aligned with Bianca Belair
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
She's been my favorite since she started spitting the green Muda mist out, man.
Yes.
Like my favorite wrestler of all time, Great Muda.
I
So
think he's retiring like this year, isn't he?
this year, yeah,
I
he's fighting. No, he just did. Or is
I
it coming? I don't know if having his last match is against Nakamura.
that's what I'm gonna
Every
say because
year
I
I see
thought I heard they signed
that,
him off on to fight Nakamura.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if that happened yet or not, but that's supposed to be his last match ever.
Yeah, that dude. It's some of these Japanese wrestlers, they stay around forever and just keep getting tougher and tougher and
Yeah,
tougher.
I know it's crazy. It's crazy. Actually, I named that collab I did with SO Muda Mist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It was funny that one I hadn't heard it before. He did something with the Mass Ave stairs or something. I don't know. That was
Yeah,
dope. His
that's with Aztech. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, his
Yeah,
rhyme scheme on that was nasty.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
That's one of my favorites of the last couple of years, definitely.
yeah. So what now wrestling's funny because a lot of rappers are into it as well. I found that there's a certain cross section between wrestling, comic books, and hip hop where I feel like
Yeah.
all of us, I don't know,
Because
maybe didn't.
we're all nerds as tough as we want to talk. That's
Yeah,
why.
yeah,
That's
it's all a
all it
very
is.
nerdy thing.
Yeah.
Is there anything so did you take anything from wrestling that you put into your hip hop?
Yeah, definitely like building a character. And the ability to kind of like sell a character. Um, you know, that character's changed quite a few times, but like being a heel when I was just hating on everything, or like now I'm a nice guy that does anime soundtracks, you know what I mean? I love everybody. So like definitely that sense of it, and just like the creativity, man, of building a character, and that's like people hated on me as a kid for watching wrestling. People hate on me as an adult for watching wrestling. Like,
Exactly.
you
Me
know what I
too.
mean? It's like, it's always like, why don't you just watch the UFC? It's like I watch that too, but
Yeah.
the UFC doesn't. I mean, they don't. The stories ain't fun, man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
You
And it's
know,
like for me, I don't really actually want to see somebody get hurt that bad.
yeah,
Like
and
it
that's
doesn't give
another
me
thing
that
too. I don't
sort
need
of
to see someone
thrill.
get his face smashed open, but like even me, someone who coming from the martial arts world too, I'm saying that, and it's like it's just entertaining, man. It's never stopped entertaining me.
Yeah.
I annoy my wife. I still watch, wrestling constantly, and she gets annoyed, but it is what it is, man. That's something. Anytime anybody ever asks me, it's like what has stuck with me my whole life: comic books, hip hop, and wrestling.
Yeah.
That's what
It's
stuck with me my whole life.
Me too. It's the same thing. It's funny. In wrestling too, I found wrestling's a real hard thing to watch around somebody who's not into it.
Oh
Because
my god,
like
it's impossible.
because what happens is there's such a thin layer of suspension of disbelief that when any of that seeps into your environment as opposed to just the screen, it just terminates everything because
Yeah,
everything becomes indefensible. Like
right. Yeah, no,
it's
100%.
and it's like me
Very
trying to
much so.
explain to my girlfriend why Orange Cassidy is amazing, which I know is a debatable point to begin with, but I'm a huge fan
Right,
of him.
right.
It's just like I don't know where to begin or why even to start.
Mhm. Yeah, or like the fact that the New Day are actual people that you were supposed to believe,
Yeah,
or like anything like that, or trying to explain. It was just like trying to explain the Undertaker to somebody back in like the '90s when it's
yeah,
like, what's he supposed to be dead or something? Like I'm supposed to believe this is real. It's like you're not supposed to believe it's real. That's
right,
where the
right.
fucking that's
That's the
where the
point.
disconnect is. A lot of
Yeah,
the disconnect, especially with like MMA fans and like UFC fans, and it's like this is obviously so fake. It's like no
no
shit.
shit.
Nobody thinks it's real, dude.
So was Die Hard.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's like especially like when you see like the crossover stuff happen, like with like people like Logan Paul wrestling now and stuff
yeah,
like that, which obviously like brings it to like a huge audience. And they're like, this is so fake. And it's like
right. Yeah, but
that's
I know.
why it's entertaining. It's because it's fake.
Yeah. If I'm in a bar fight, I'm not gonna live stream my elbow drop.
No,
It's
yeah, I'm not gonna
understood.
frog splash somebody in a bar fight.
Yeah.
No.
Though Logan Paul really showed me something in that match. Like,
No, definitely. Him and Bad Bunny both
yeah,
impressed the shit out of me for like celebrities wrestling.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. I wonder if I bet we're gonna get one or both of them. And I don't know how bad Logan Paul is hurt, but I one or both of them. I bet it's gonna be a
Mhm.
mania.
I know. So from what I heard through one of these I talked to a couple of these YouTubers, the wrestling guys, and what I heard is WWE is supposed to do an event in Puerto Rico around like February, I think. And
Oh,
I think
that's
do like
yeah.
Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus uh Dominic Mysterio and somebody else, but that's to set up Dominic Mysterio versus Bad Bunny at WrestleMania. Supposedly. That's what I
I'd
heard.
be on board for that. I gotta say, I like Dominic Mysterio. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
went from
like
thinking, I went from just being like, oh, we can generate some heat, being like, I think him and Hook are the two guys that I'm like, if they spend time on, they really could have something with.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, I mean, I don't see. Look at this, still entertaining. I can still talk about wrestling at my age,
Yeah,
you know.
it's wild.
And,
I don't know. It's just the backstage stuff makes it so much more interesting as well, you know?
yeah, and now we know all that shit too. You know what I mean? Now it's
Yeah,
like now that's all accessible, and storylines and things happening, and I so that's like the one area that I want to tackle that I haven't yet. I want to do entrance music so bad. I want to do somebody's entrance music so bad, man.
yeah.
That's the only I reached out to New Japan only because my label's obviously in Japan. So like I told people out there, I was like, can you just reach out to somebody from there and just let them know that like I'm willing to do it? Like
Well, especially
so
because so many of the acts that end up on there, I mean, there's been a lot of like laughable acts that when you watch over the years, like WWE's Vengeance pay-per-view music brought by some band that had a song 10 years ago. And it's just
no,
like the stuff, it's
no,
like it's the elevator music of rock. It's just
yeah,
like ugh.
no, for
And
sure.
you know, and now there's a lot. I mean, Action Bronson wrestled a match
He did.
a few months ago and
He,
did a
he
pretty
did.
good job.
He did. He did. But yeah, I mean, I'd still love to do that. That's and like there's certain wrestlers too that are like super into anime. So like I'm trying to like tackle it from that aspect too, because it's like, oh, you like
Oh
that show?
yeah.
Do you like the music? You know who did it? I did it. So how about you let me do your music now? So it's
Yeah,
like,
shit.
so yeah, I don't know. That'll happen someday, but
Yeah, yeah.
just don't know how.
I mean, yeah, well, when you least expect it,
I
probably.
didn't know how I'd end up on anime soundtracks either. So
Yeah, how did
uh,
I was actually going to bring that before. How did you end up in the anime room? Because there was a period of time where I kind of disappeared from the scene a bit, and then when I came back, you were working on anime, and I didn't
yeah,
really know how that happened.
yeah. So my group Hybrid Thoughts, we got signed to a label in Japan in 2016, and we put an album out in Japan that didn't do like crazy, but it did well. And it did well enough to catch the ears of Toho Animation, who then asked me and Paranorm specifically to do a song for this show called Kekai Sensen, which was the first show I did, but they just wanted like a regular boom bap track, and we did that. And then I didn't know how big it was going to be, or if it was even like a big deal or whatever, but it was actually like a real anime. And then people really loved that song. So from then on, they're like, we need another hip hop song for this show. So I did that. And then came a show called Dr. Stone, which is on Adult Swim now on HBO Max. So like they asked us to come in the studio for that, and we did. And the production team from Japan was there, so we got to actually build with them in person. We did all the hip hop on that show. That show blew up. So from then on, it just became anytime they need hip hop, they hit us up. So
Damn,
yeah,
it's like it's as easy and as difficult as that.
yeah,
And
no, for sure. Well, the credit goes to my man Yuki, who produced all of the last Cyber Thoughts album, because he's based out in Japan. He's from Japan, so he kind of like built that bridge with us. So that was kind of the luck of that, you know what I mean? And the album doing as well as it did in Japan obviously wouldn't have happened without him, like kind of co-signing it. So it's all due to that, man. And that was just it. Like 20 years of hip hop in Boston, as opposed to it was that record was out in Japan for less than a year before the anime stuff happened.
wow,
So yeah, it's like what the fuck have I been doing my whole life?
I guess getting ready.
Yeah, exactly. I guess so.
Yeah, good lord.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
but that's it now, though, man. I mean, like, still doing music for myself, man. Like Green 21, I got to put out this year but I based Green 21 around anime. Like I tried to make that sound like an anime soundtrack.
Yeah,
Um, and but I was able to do that this year just because I don't want to like lose sight of like what I actually like to do myself, rather than
right.
rather than things I get hired to do. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, the best way to kill something you love is to get paid for it to some degree.
yeah,
I when I was
exactly.
started doing my art, I started doing a lot of pet portraits and pictures of people's kids and stuff, and I'm just like, this isn't what I got into anything to do. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for the couple $100, but eventually I'm just like, I can't. Like every time someone's dog died, I got paid $100 or something to draw it, and I'm like, this is eating a bit of my soul.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. I can imagine.
and
You're
then every
killing that
time,
shit too, man.
what you what?
Your art's been fire, man.
Oh, thanks, man, I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah. Definitely.
Then eventually I got to the point where when one of my friend's dogs dies, I would just draw it and give it to them because I felt bad taking the money out of it. I'm like, I'm still going through the process of thinking about this dog passing away. So yeah, hip hop's I
Mhm.
don't know, man.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, exactly. Starting to make money off something is what'll kill it. Definitely.
Yeah, but but I mean, this is I think it's probably a little different when it's anime and hip hop. I mean, you
Yeah, yeah,
kind of
because it's not my shit. It's for somebody else. So like,
yeah.
it's what it exactly. It sounds like exactly what it is. I'm getting hired to do something. I do it, and that's it. You
And
know,
it's
it's not
funny
my
too. We were
thing.
talking before about back in the day, there was the attitude of like, you're not hip hop and you're not, and you're, I don't like that you're doing this. I mean, I remember even
Mhm.
in our own scene, there was a lot of debating about who the acts were that got the highest billing and what they were representing versus what other people were representing
Mhm.
to the 8 people that were listening. And
Yeah, yeah.
it kind of, and now as we've gotten older and become more open-minded, these opportunities arise. When it's like when you don't look at the other people doing it as your competitors and you try to find a way to make them your allies and work towards common goals, it's amazing what actually happens, you know?
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, like when people ask me, like, that you found success over the past few years, it's like I found success when I stopped fucking caring about what everybody else
Yes,
thinks, or like stopped making music to impress other people that made music.
that's a
Like,
huge,
like,
that's a big one.
and that's really what it is. It's like, and I see that now, especially cats our age that still do it. Like they're still jaded, man. And like you go into like these Facebook groups and stuff, and it's like people just love to just get gratification from other rappers. It's like rap for other rappers. Like
Right.
things like, for example, something that used to really piss me off was when like I would do a show and then the cats who either went on before us would leave before my set or whatever.
Yeah.
Like now I get it. Like I don't care. That's not who I'm fucking performing
Right.
for. I'm not performing
Right.
for the other rappers. I don't care. You know what I mean? And that kind of mentality is what makes people so stuck. And I really wish people would kind of realize that. And I think like another one of the biggest issues is I think people got a little bit of like a warped perception of what putting in work is, like writing, recording music and doing shows isn't really putting in work. That's just like doing like the
Right.
bare minimum. That's like
It's
doing what you're
indulging
supposed to
yourself
do. Yeah,
essentially.
that's what you're doing. Like that's not really putting in work. So like a lot of people just do that and then expect things to happen. And when they don't, they just hate everybody else that it happens for,
Right.
you know? So
If you're not a people person, you're not going to really make it in this business. And
no,
if
exactly.
that's, you have to be, yeah, it's
Which is fine if you know that, but like if you're like mad that no one's paying attention to you and you're an asshole, it's like don't be an asshole.
right.
Like
Yeah. It's like being an asshole
that.
doesn't really get you too far.
No.
It's, yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I mean, there was a lot of rap that was made. There was a lot of, and I've done this before, rapping about rapping. And that's what I'm
Oh my
trying
god.
not to do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, catch and wreck is one thing, but like the rapping about rapping, whenever I catch myself doing that, I just have to just hit myself on the hand of the
Yeah.
ruler or
Rapping
something.
about rapping and rapping about rappers.
Yes, yes, and there's been a
Yeah.
lot like,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is the need for validation is a very dangerous thing too. It's because people
Probably the most
really
dangerous
sell
thing.
art for either people want to be out there either make money or for validation.
Mhm.
And the more I found, the more I've divorced myself from those things when it comes to my art. I mean, I'm in a position where I can do that. I got a job and outside of it and whatever.
Mhm.
But like validation's a real dangerous drug to chase.
Yeah, very much. And gets chased way too often. And that's
Yeah,
especially now.
rarely caught.
Yeah, and with social media that made it even harder. It's now validation is like all that exists in life for people. So,
Yeah.
you
Are you
know.
so to what I don't want to name your two, and I'll let you go pretty soon because I know we're
Mhm.
been talking for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
while.
yeah.
But when you one thing I wanted to mention too about your albums that I really liked is that the stuff I listened to today, and every time you put something out, I listen to it when it comes out. But I listen to so much stuff that it's just so I went
Mhm.
through it all again today, and I really liked how you blended that boom bap sound with the modern sound without really losing either of it because
Right.
one of my biggest criticisms for a while of underground hip hop is everyone's like, we're taking it back to the 80s, taking it back to especially the 90s. And I'm like, look, there's still records made in the 90s I haven't heard yet. I don't need your
Yeah,
impression.
yeah, exactly.
And I think you did a really good job of blending the new with the old in a way that I hadn't heard in a while. So I want to give you props for that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I think that just I think that just comes with the point of like not being that like jaded older guy, you know what I mean? Like listening or like just experience and culture, man. You know what I mean? Because like that's really all it is, man. It's like, you know, if someone puts out a record that sounds like it's supposed to have been out in the '90s, that means they haven't really evolved as a human being. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like, you know, you take pieces of who you are and you kind of push that forward. You know what I mean?
I had a I think I'm getting the name right. I don't know a lot of these mumble rappers, but Lil Peep, he's one that passed away, I think, right?
So yeah.
So if I'm wrong, I apologize, but the
No,
point
you
is the
think you're
same
right. That
either
was
way.
the white kid, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried to listen to that music, type of music a few times, and I just like I can't figure it out. But I did
Mhm.
watch a documentary on his life, and I saw they showed his literally, tapes, videos of from his shows, and all of a sudden seeing the context started for it to actually make sense.
Right,
And it's
right.
not that I really enjoyed it any more or any less, but the context, it finally gave me a context. I'm like, oh, this exists inside this greater world this bigger world that I'm just not a part of at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of goes, yeah, definitely. That kind of goes hand in hand with someone like ICP during our days. Never was a
Yes.
fan of the music, but like I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. And I
Yeah.
respect it.
Yeah.
That's it.
What
You know?
they're like, how about if we were Kiss, but we're gonna rap instead? That sounds like it's gonna make a lot
Yeah,
of money.
yeah, exactly.
So
So yeah. Sometimes we're not supposed to understand things. And
yeah.
I think that's kind of the beauty of art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And that's why when you try to reverse engineer something by looking what someone else did and trying to break it down and do it for you, it never works.
No, you'll lose automatically.
Yeah. Yeah. So all right. So anything you got coming up in 2023 you want to mention that
Yeah,
you're
so,
excited about? Or
yeah, definitely. And I'm back on the convention. So this year I switched shows for conventions. I did one show all year, and I just mainly did anime and comic conventions all year. So I'll probably get back on that tip in 2023 again. But I'm trying to do a little more like actual performing as well. But I'll be on back on that tip, and myself and Paranom are putting out an EP to kind of like write off all the work we've been doing in anime. And in springtime, I'll probably be doing a lot of soundtracks, but only one for sure I know that I finished already was season 3 of the show Dr. Stone that's on Adult Swim. That comes out in the spring, so I'll probably write off that for most of the year.
awesome. And then when this comes out, I'll do an intro where I'll mention whatever you got coming at the time too.
Dope, dope,
If you have anything new coming out, man. So
dope, dope.
awesome. I really appreciate you being here, Aztec. Check out Aztec from Hybrid Thoughts on all different platforms and all that great shit. And
Yes, sir.
yeah, thank you very much for everything you've done for the scene for all the years as well. I mean, I
Thank you, man.
honestly think that the Boston hip hop scene is better for having you be a part of it. And there's been times where I think that I've seen different people take sides and different little beefs in Boston, and you were always the one in the middle that was either helping or at least not making it worse. And I think that
Man.
actually is harder to do than a lot of people might think.
Yeah, no, it is not easy.
So we appreciate that. So,
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
man, it's my pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Magic mirror plan, felt ashamed with the fallacy. Tragic fear of Mandela brain, skip reality, genetics never question. Even we pick, seen my ancestors on a DMT trip. Prayers for the league, go clever when you know the role. Layers to the ego, severed to a totem pole, cut half the lineage, block out the bloodline, pull down the lunar and rise up the sunshine. Complex patterns on repeat up in my dream state. Top of the King's Court, reason I sleep late. Columbus saw lights in the sky during midnight. Ripped from the books just to limit the insight. So which fight are we arming ourselves for? Shadows pay the price, that's the karma, stealth war. So finish those lies, rebel with brass fists. The indigo thrives in a level that's past this. the art form, old haberdasher. I mass conflict with a crowd full of cold feet. Noble on the arch, bow down to the throne seat. Prime all prior to the higher ground boss. 9-9, all-nighters in a Chinatown loft. M-A-W, a hole for the K-side. Head up on a window, it's raw for the day ride.